Hello and welcome to another Lord of the Rings Rise to War video. I am the player who plays as the King under the mountain, and I'm just going to do a short season update video today. I know I did one a few days ago, but a few things have changed since then. I'd probably quite like to talk about where everyone's at with the rankings, the fact that Dol Guldur is now open, which will probably change some dynamics a little bit. I'm just going to watch over this reinforce because I'm on a tile over here. And just make sure that this sort of reinforced route isn't killed off because I've kind of sat on this tile. And perhaps talk about some ideas away from Sauron, and probably talk about how I perhaps think his percentage-based skill, the Deceiver, is a touch broken in the background, which I'm not sure the devs actually want to admit to because I did ask customer services this the other day, but I've got a feeling that it's potentially linked to something like initiative, completely by accident or something like that. But anyway, and then maybe talk through some other commanders away from Sauron that perhaps could work, but in the same way causes some sort of problem in a different way because you can still be hit by Sauron, if I'm honest. Which is kind of the main problem of certain things. But anyway, I'll kind of get into it. So I've also got some reports to show today. But I'll start with making sure that these get there. Nothing will hit them now. So let's start with the leaderboards as always. So again, we're just outside that top 10. We could be in the top 10 if we wanted to be. We're not far off. We've just kind of not really felt a need to try and take some 150s just to make up that gap. Usual people around the top end really. And it's a good mix as well of the fellowships. The only ones really, and that's not through their own fault, is Illil haven't really got anyone in this top list just for the simple reason. This is interesting. Just for the simple reason that they just haven't really got the farmland, to be honest, to actually kind of get up there in the rankings, I would suggest, just because of where they started. As for the fellowship production, nothing really has changed so much. Youths has come down by 100k, we've gone up by 100k. I'm pretty sure Gods may have gone up by 100k, and I'm pretty sure Debt's also gone up by 100k. Interestingly, Illil have increased to 1.8 and Cellar have increased to 1.5. Cellar are now in the kingdom with youths, and they are growing in number, I believe. I think they started the season as 50 and there's now 85 of them, so from a numbers perspective, there's definitely up there. So there's 99 in youths. Nectar will go back in there, I would guess, whenever he's finished farming himself or whatever he's doing. There's 100 in guards. There should be 100 in us, I believe. In Dobie, I would hope. And I think there's 100 in Debt. Yeah, that's right. So just to kind of catch up with the kingdoms again, because I suppose if you're new to this, we'll go through them. So it's youths, and there is Cellar in a kingdom together. And there is Illil and Gods in another kingdom together. There is Dobie and Debt. I am in Dobie, as I normally am. And then there's LCDR and SPRT, who are also in kingdom together, which will get Gorgoroth and Barad-dûr back at some stage in the near future, I presume. Reform their kingdom, which kind of got dispersed by Illil quite early on in the season. Contribution rankings wise, as expected, I have been taken over by Ogre. I'm still just in front of the old man Law, who hasn't quite caught me up yet. I should probably get back in front of Raven at some point because I've got some Ogre at some point because I have got some stamina. Although hits are pretty hard in youths, I'll be honest, and I'll come on to that when I go through the battle reports, particularly as we're currently fighting on their land. Raven, as always, is out in front, and that's just a given, really, at this stage. As I say that, we've just been panned. I'll just have a quick look at that. Robin's just finished me off. I'll just have a quick look at this as it's just happened. This guy's a really strong player and quite a nice guy, to be fair, using the 1.0 stuff. And it kind of brings me back to my sort of Sauron debate, really. As an evil side player, he's done quite well here to get these two up to where he's got them to compete. He's got some nice gear too. We've played with him in the past, but just to kind of look at this, I'll just see if his Sauron did do anything, because his Sauron is ultimately faster than my Sauron. White Riders happen properly. White Councils happen properly. My Sauron's work. So nothing really has gone too horrendously wrong there for me in that fight. That's a pretty even contest. I'm pretty happy with that because with us fighting on their land, there is a small buff in there for them. I think it's 10% for the defending side. So all the fights that are in their land, they're good fights, and we've definitely lost a lot more personally in their land than what we have done in the past. Now that I'm dead and I'll recover for 10 minutes, I'll just reinforce just while we're here. We'll just speed that up, and I'll reinforce from my base because it's about a 15-minute march, something like that, and then it'll be ready for when we come back. So we have been pretty active in this season, as we tend to be really. Let's get into the map first, because that probably makes more sense. So this is the map. I'll zoom out before the pins appear and I get told off, he says, kind of. So this is the map. So this is the Yude's Kingdom. This is the Hack Kingdom up the top. I forgot to mention Hack, to be fair. I think they're in there with Demi, as in demigods now, I think. So that's quite a cool little kingdom. They are fighting with Yudes on the border, it seems, quite a lot. Yudes have been farming them, I think, with, from what I've seen, a lot of sort of secondary formations and eagle bombs from watching someone else's video. Cellar are top of this pin, so they're obviously up that way a little bit more. These are just two small pins. This is the Gods and Ilil Kingdom, and this is the Dovian Deck Kingdom here. So we're kind of all surrounded, Amon Lank, and the ring is now open, so we're through to that chapter. There are still, I'll just go through the other pins. There's a 7.2 million pin here, which is pretty impressive considering Ilil should probably be in the centre now. Another 4.2 million pin here. So there's some big pins with Mordor, to be fair. They've had some fun over there. And then this is the main pin, which has been here for 3 days now, and it's 40.8 million and 14.8 million deaths. And this is just inside Anduin, inside Karas, actually, sorry. So it's just inside Karas. Gods have come from this side, and we have come from this side, and we're both currently in the middle of this kind of area with Yudes, who, to be fair to them, are holding their own to a degree. They have been pushed back a little bit, but they're certainly holding their own. Like I say, people are setting up around Dol Guldur. You can see it on the map. We have a couple of fort positions that we're now in also, so we're kind of doing our bit around there, and I think the other two teams are also starting to set up around there now. So that's good. While we're on the subject of that, I will probably go into some battle reports, and then from there look at maybe just some options instead of Sauron, because I think pretty much everyone at the moment is using the same 4 commanders, which for the state of the game isn't ideal. I think to have some extra options from the game would be nice. Yes, you can use some other commanders. There are some A-tier commanders which are you're able to use, but realistically, if you're using the main 4 commanders, even at lower respect levels and lower gear levels, you're likely to come out on top, which is kind of, I don't know, it's just sort of a look around. I think at some stage or another, even though I think the game's currently enjoyable with the changes that they've made to tactical forts and things like that, they do need to look at some options of how to link things. And I'll probably come on to those as well on there, about how to make it so that you could perhaps get some troop damage comps which actually make a difference in fights and things like that. So as for our levels, we have 150 and we're nearly there. Another 500k XP roughly across these, a little bit more on Bjorn, but we're nearly there with full 50s, and the secondary formation haven't really done a lot apart from sweeping, to be honest. I find if I use my secondary against anyone who's got decent gear, I just melt, so not really much point in doing that for me. So at that point, I'll start at the top with battle reports, and then I'll kind of I'll go through it sort of one by one. So this was a decent battle the other day, and this is what I mean. The difference between fighting on our land and sort of Yude's land is when we're fighting on New Zealand, this 10% buff is really twisting fights in their favour. And to be fair, I think it's helped them level. I don't know if they've necessarily enjoyed fighting on their land. Probably about as much as we enjoyed fighting in Undeeps, to be honest, for the main. But as a general rule, we we lose a little bit more just because of the 10% buff. And to be fair, this guy's pretty whaled, so I was okay with this result. And then I got finished off by someone else. Next fight I was going to show again, it was RNG, and this is kind of an off-meta comp where nothing drastic's happened in this fight apart from the level difference. I mean, the gear's okay here, to be fair, it's pretty good. So I guess you could probably expect this kind of result, I suppose. Particularly with Gimli with no armour on. But yeah, Shadow with a 4 refine unique. That fight probably would have been a little bit closer, to be fair, if Gimli had some gear on. And then we tried to sort of chew through this, and again, this guy's strong, so we kind of hit this like a brick wall and fell apart accordingly. Then this guy's always hard to hit. So I was quite pleased with this fight, to be honest. Pretty equal levels. Again, this was on their land, so 10% buff in their favour for the kingdom. The fights I find with this guy are heavily Sauron based. If he gets any kind of Sauron proc on me, I'm in all sorts of bother. This guy smashes me up every time, particularly because he uses cavalry. Again, fantastic gear. You'd are very blessed with some amazing players, to be honest. And some really huge accounts. I mean, this guy here, I know he's followed up and I've only got a little bit, but why is he on that side? That's a bit strange. Anyway, his gear is pretty incredible also. I think I've got some fights of him from the other day. I'm not sure if they're in this sort of lot of battle reports. These are just sort of the best from the last few days, to be honest. This is another one where this guy's actually a really hard player. This is probably one of my better results against this guy. Normally when I hit him full, his Sauron messes with my entire formation and I kind of melt. I tend to lose to about 1500 supply against him as a general rule. But as it's a team game, I keep throwing myself in there and someone hopefully jumps on top and kills him off. Here's a report with Pong. And this is one of the better ones, to be fair. This is the only time I think I've actually got him. Or one of a few times that I've actually got him. And his commanders are incredible. At least my Dane is actually of a higher Z level, to be fair. But, the rest are pretty good. Again, using the Dunedains for speed. And using Berserkers on Bjorn, which is interesting. Again, I'm presuming that's to try and get his speed up a little bit. To see if he can try and madden my Bjorn. But I was impressed with that result. I mean, if we'd have played through the draw, I'm not entirely convinced I'd have finished the fight off winning. But maybe, to be fair, it'd been close. Just because I've got Sauron alive. Again, this is the leader of Youths, and I think I got a little bit lucky in this fight. This is one of the ones that I actually beat him on. Again, this is all fighting inside their territory, so they've got the buff. And kind of the reason why I think that the unit defense build, like I said last time in the last video, really does help. So it's 4 Guardians. Yes, if Sauron is going to madden me in any way, I'm in some sort of trouble. But generally, it's supposed to be a 17% chance, so you should do it. This is generally what happens between me and Pong. I tend to get a little bit destroyed. I'm not going to try and pronounce this guy's name. Or girl's name, I suppose. But he's a really strong player. Using the purple armour to good effect as well. And the siege helm, which is always nice. But yeah, this kind of thing. So always really strong. Always comes out quite an even fight, to be honest. Dane here in 180k, which is pretty impressive. So that was that. think I've lost a lot of fights this day. This is kind of my reasoning behind trying to find an option against Sauron, because this is one of those fights whereby we generally come out fairly level, and for a 17-ish% chance or whatever it is that Sauron actually procs Deceiver on you and hits the right commander, I mean to hit both in this thing. So basically, Madden my Sauron, so I hit with that, then my Sauron hits myself with Deceiver, which is never ideal. Then Gandalf gives me White Council, but then hits me with White Rider. So, 2 out of 4 things there stolen. And again, just to try and sort of talk through what I was talking about, this is a really high initiative Sauron, and I do wonder if the higher the initiative, for some apparent reason, it does affect how much that madness kind of procs. This is another good fight, I think, from memory. Yeah, so 193k from his Dane, which is outrageous. Did kill his Gandalf though, happy days. But there wasn't a lot left in the tank for me. Again, quick Sauron, faster than mine, and then a fairly decent Bjorn as well. This is Gooch. Gooch runs around terrorising people, generally with cavalry, and I was quite impressed with this result. Again, this was in Yude's land, but obviously they don't get the buff because it's gods. And I was pretty happy with this. I know I'm a few levels above, and he uses a lot of 1.0 gear, but he's a really, really tough opponent to actually get through because of the cav boost. So yeah, to get through that, I was pretty happy. This I think was another, so all these fights are actually inside Yude's territory, so this was a good result against a strong player. Really nice gear. Again, quick Sauron. This is an interesting chess piece for Bjorn. But yeah, so interesting chess piece for Bjorn, but good strong player. I think this guy's gear is outrageous as well. I was pretty happy with this. Again, you've got to think my gear's not bad, but like there's some gear in here that's probably arguably slightly better than mine, I would suggest. Again, I've got more unit defense than they have, and they're using obviously the fast Sauron, which is faster than mine. But again, it's nice scale doing 122k damage. Nice to see someone other than Bjorn or Dane doing some damage. This guy's the guy who's number 1 in the server, and again, I was pretty happy with this. Some serious gear. I will have definitely got some RNG benefit from this report if I dug into it. There is no way I should be coming out fairly level with that. I think if it had gone through the draw, I'd have lost potentially because my Dane's dead, his is alive, and he's got a lot of troops. But then I suppose these two would stay alive a little bit longer. I don't know, it'd be close, but I think probably wins out, and he was a lot lower level there. But I'm still pretty happy with that. These multi-reports I quite like, but it just depends what it stacks up as. Nicely again, another com in here, another good sort of set of gear. Like I say, you don't get much squishiness to hit with Yudes. This is a nice helmet for Dane. I do like command on damage dealers. I think command and attack is probably the way to go with the helmet. I know best in slots allegedly what I'm wearing, but I think if you change it to a command and attack helmet, I think it arguably works out a little bit better if you can keep your attack over 200. So that was that. Good old Riv. This was yesterday. The Eviscerator himself, he'd been trying to fight me for about 4 hours, I think it felt like, and his argument here is he doesn't need to strengthen this piece because it's doing what he wants with Divide and Conquer. So he's using the trolls and using these T2 Marauders, which is actually quite a clever tactic because you're getting the damage increase boost from using cavalry. They've also got decent HP. So Riv does well. I'm pretty sure this is, in his opinion, the best he's ever seen Skal do with the unique and the initial hit was heavy on this. Uses a quick scowl just to kind of make sure that the unique hits hard. 141k from scowls, good to see. But yeah, I was quite happy with that yesterday. Then we fought Rat, who I'd never actually fought Rat before, and I thought it was just a troll, but apparently not. So a decent sort of mix of 1.0 and 2.0 gear. Again, same here. Nice looking Dane too. And yeah, the arguably, sort of speedy Sauron build that everyone uses. So I was quite happy that we won that fight. This was today, I think. So again, good fight. Again, people, so much initiative these days on Gandalf and Sauron, which you kind of expect. But again, good gear inside sort of Yude's territory, so that was nice. Then I had a couple of ding-dongs with Robin, who's a player that we've known for quite a few seasons. I got him on this one just, and obviously the account he's playing is very whaled. I'll just click through the last couple. So his King of Men's really cool, to be fair. And his Dane's pretty impressive. So we sort of won through that time. I think he got me on this one though. I couldn't just show the win because he'd definitely be in the comments afterwards saying you've only shown the win. So same sort of fight, battered me in that fight, to be fair. I think it's 3-1 currently though, Robin, whether you like it or not, sorry. Again, another fight just with the same sort of guy from before. And then absolutely wrecked by Vanilla. I think this is the second time we fought and he's hit me both times. And each time we fought, again, to sort of come back to my initial point about initiative, he's got a really high initiative Sauron, and again, I don't think anything actually happened in this fight, but Sauron basically mauling me himself, so I hit myself with both Sauron skills. So in each fight so far with Vanilla, I have actually peppered myself with Sauron or Gandalf the White. So I'll be interested to see how that come out if that didn't happen. Obviously that's part of the mechanics, that's why he sets up the way he does to do that. But yeah, really, really strong opponent. So again, the sort of fast Sauron. Great Dane, not the dog. Bjorn and Gandalf the White. My point is on fights like this where that happens completely to Sauron, and I suppose you can make the same argument for Gandalf the White. Gandalf the White is a little bit easier because you just make him fast enough that you can actually protect his skills, but with Sauron it's not quite as simple because if you haven't got 1.0 gear, with his base initiative being lower than Gandalf's, you can't really protect yourself as much. So it's kind of like you've potentially, in a lot more fights than you should, you're losing these 20 points, or at least 10 of them. So I just think maybe replacing Sauron over a period of time, if you're not the quickest of Saurons, seems to make some sense to me, because I know logically people have said unit defense and command on Sauron's also fine, but if you're going to do that, you may as well just use Frodo. So I don't know, or Falcon, the other one. Again, another whale, another death. This was Phoenix Fly, who I've beaten a few times on our land. I think I've beaten once in their land as well, but I have no right to beat someone who has this kind of equipment, to be honest. And I did not in this case. I got absolutely pounded, and rightfully so. I think even in this fight, though, I think I lost White Council. I did. So, it happens. I suppose it depends how you look at it. It happens, I think, more than it should do, that it procs. But the devs seem to think that it sort of, works as they want it to. So, I don't know. Food for thought is probably the key. And then the last one, this was just before I started recording, actually. Fellow, thanks for this. Fellow runs a slightly off-meta one with Falcon, and to be honest, Falcon was going to be one of the people I suggest because I'd seen this formation running around for a few days. Obviously, Fellow's another YouTuber who runs some sort of slightly off-meta stuff from time to time, and it works quite well for him. This is an expensive formation, don't get me wrong, but it's kind of hammered me, really. And again, gear-wise, don't get me wrong, he's he's kind of invested here. This is a great account. I think it's Jax Galley's whole good side account, I think, but yeah, it's certainly a good formation. I've took some chunks out of that, to be honest, considering it's Great Beast and other things, and probably from a resource point of view, it's very similar, but this will stay in the fight, and the skills on Falcon on that make him, I think, a valuable and also viable option instead of Sauron, potentially, particularly if you've come from all good side. And again, things like this, you see, so the horrible thing about us fighting on Yude's land for a few days is that they've been allowed to level because they've won most of the fights, so they've kind of either out-leveled us or caught us up, whereas we were quite far in front at one stage. So I'm just going to kind of just move back to the front, up here somewhere. I'll probably sit here for now and see if I can get a few fights later. I won't go sit on the 22 stack. So yeah, so my point is, and I was just going to kind of briefly mention this, so I do think that this skill here is not functioning as they think it does, because you've got to think it's a 35% chance to inflict madness on the target. You're hitting 3 enemy formations, so after that madness is then a coin flip, and it's a coin flip on each skill. So I think my maths is pretty dreadful and stuff like this, but I think it works out about 17%. So you could argue that at some stage or another, in every single fight, if both people have got Sauron, there should be 1.5 to 2 procs of madness across the entire fight on skills, individual skills. And I don't know, it feels like it procs a lot more than that, and when it does actually hit, it tends to hit Gandalf the White or Sauron, but it may just be the fact that you notice it more on those two because those are the ones that are most impactful. But if your Sauron is too slow, and this is kind of going back to would you change your formation, this skill really hammers yourself, and you've kind of got all the points in his build potentially stealable. And I get that works for other people as well. So the kind of people that I'm talking about here to sort of suggest is, you know, I'm kind of going down the route of a Gil Galad, for example. And if you used elves, you could use Gil. You see my siege Gil here, you know, doing what he's good at. But if you were to throw Gil in there, you want Gil to be slow. So you're kind of asking for people to steal this Kingly King skill or High King skill, which is kind of the whole point in Gil again. So again, is it effective? Is it not? When it isn't subject to being part of the Madness Bomb, yes, it's effective, but it is sort of open to that kind of problem. The other one that I see people using is in Undying. I believe, again, the same thing can happen with the Evade. It can be stolen. Falgin, I have seen the other day in a report, it was actually one of Raven's reports, that Thrain's Guard was stolen, and then that's again not ideal because a bit like White Council, you're losing your protection. So again, not ideal. Good tank, but not ideal. And then you're kind of then looking at other options like a Frodo, I guess. And again, you could use Frodo for full tank mode, which I think he is the best tank in the game. With if you put him with command gear and sort of, I don't know, physical damage reduction, that kind of stuff, I would argue he is the best tank in the game. The only problem I see with this, again, is those skills can be stolen. So it's kind of a what do you do? And the only other viable options I can kind of think of is you could run an Isildur, which, again, you can protect yourself a little bit as a tank. Your other options, I guess, is do you go for a third damage dealer, someone like an Aragorn, who with the R5, if you are affected by madness, you're getting a damage reduction, which I suppose helps counter Sauron to a degree. So I think that's a viable option, but then you're running 3 DDs, so I think it's tough. Your other option, again, you can run a Skullhelm, and you can get into this Nazgul skill, and you can get into Dark Ranger, and again, she's got a very high base initiative stat, but you've got to be quick for her to work properly anyway, so arguably you would avoid Sauron because you would be in front of that. And other than that, I mean, this goes to show you the sort of state of where we're at with the game, where there isn't a great deal of viable options. I mean, I know some people who run Elrond, for example. Again, it's another DD, so it's whether the 3DD and White Council works for you or not, I guess. The other option, of course, is someone like a Bard, who's a little bit more hybrid. You've got damage skills in here, but you know, this kind of, if you hit the right thing, again, it's hitting the right person. Things like Bowman work quite well. And also this here, which reduces the damage dealt by the target's formation's commander by 9% for 1 round by the attack stat. So, you know, these kind of skills, he is a bit more hybrid. So potentially a Bard is an option instead of a Sauron, I guess, where you're sort of stopping the other person's physical damage. I've seen people run Oglog as a tank, which has worked out okay for them. So, you know, he's got a high command stat. So again, you know, these are all kind of viable options. And I saw something from HJW the other day on Barlin, where again, Barlin's kind of got quite a high command stat for a dwarf. If I can ever find Barlin in here. There he is. So, you know, he's got 108 for a command stat for a dwarf, so you could probably throw in something like that and do some kind of hybrid build on him with Lord of Moria and a little bit of Revitalist maybe. But your options are limited. I know everyone's kind of gone off Mouth of Sauron, but I do think there is something you could do with Mouth of Sauron if you kind of, you'd probably need some kind of troop which cleansed, or having a Tranquility Helm, for example, from before on someone who is important to you, so you're not fighting your own team. But the options to replace Sauron in NRP are different, so they're also not probably as viable as just keeping him running. And the issue I find is mine is slower, so if you've got a slightly slower Sauron, he's not as effective and likely to hit you with your skills you want him to hit the enemy with. Figured I better actually drink some water there. I feel like I've just literally motor mouthed for about 25 minutes. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. And if I had a unit defense gear set, I would probably think about switching Sauron out at the moment for someone like probably Frodo, if I'm honest, just to try it out, just to see what happened. But there is a school of thought, I think, that you could potentially drop Sauron for a 3rd damage dealer, but at that point you have to really protect your White Council quite significantly. We are still on this tile, which is good. And I'm pretty sure that's about everything I wanted to talk about today. I wanted to get some conversation going around Sauron and around sort of that future of how it works. I don't think NetEase have got any intention of changing how the skill works, which, I don't know, could the percentage be lowered so that you see some slightly different commanders? I'm not too sure, but I think there's a lot of frustration around the game at the moment that people are using the same 5 or 6 commanders. You know, you've got your Lurtzes and you've got your Scalhounds and people like that, and your Saruman's, for example, who will do a good job, but if you run into the meta at a similar level, they just get pounded. So I think at some stage or another, something has to be done about that. And the only real thing I can think of is from and it would probably work in quite well with what the devs wanted to do with 1.0 gear. So if anyone remembers from 1.0, it was that long ago now, your damage dealer's damage used to be linked to your the amount of units you've got left and your unit health. And I don't really know why they removed that function, considering they put in a health bar for the commander. Like, surely the easiest way of kind of leveling the game back out a little bit would probably be to link commander damage to either this HP stat or the amount of units left in that formation. Just some food for thought, really, to try and see some different commanders, because it would be nice to see, you know, some of the cooler troop commanders, like a Gil-galad, for example. if he could actually do some damage rather than hitting like a wet paper bag, it'd be quite nice. Or seeing some of the Rohirrim commanders come back into the fray. And, ultimately, from a game perspective going forward at some stage or another, whether we like it or not, and my hatred of elves comes out more and more, theoretically a formation of, tier 3 commander elves, for example, should compete with a group of 4 tier 3 commander dwarves. But at the moment, if you were to line those two up, there is only one clear winner, and unfortunately the pointy ears end up very dead. And that's kind of how they balance that out. But for me, linking commander damage to commander health would be a sensible option. I don't think it'd sort of cause them too much of an issue. Just if you think about it from very basic terms, and how troop damage and commander damage work. So if commander damage is taking, there is nothing that comes off it. So you hit the same in round 1 as you can in round 10 because you've not linked it to anything like commander health, or you've not linked it to troop health. They're just hitting for the same value pretty much. The only real multiplier is kind of like unit defense or sort of commander defense. Whereas if you're using units, if you're taking a hit in the first round and your units have died going into the second round when you come to attack, there's less units, so you're going to naturally do less damage. So to kind of have the two systems not married up in any way, shape or form is a little bit bonkers to me. So it's just some food for thought, really. And if anyone's got any other ideas how they might be able to change that fact, go for it. And I know there's also been a little bit of talk lately about the new commander again, which I've seen from a few people. And I really hope it is Balrog, because obviously we've kind of all been promised that for a very long period of time now, and it looks like it's been linked as another Nazgul. Which I get from their point of view probably makes some sense to bring out the other Nazgul, because you've only got 8 Nazgul at the moment, and they probably pay for the rights for 9. I'm just going to send this here, I think. I know CLF's a whale, but I'd quite like to hit him again at some point soon. I've lost my train of thought there because I can't do two things at once. Yes, 9th Nazgul. So I presume they've probably already got the rights for a 9th Nazgul. And yes, it'd be pretty cool if it was kind of like a support Nazgul, or something that was a real nasty physical damage Nazgul or something like that. But give the people what they want. They've been after a Balrog for a really long time now. And I've still got waiting somewhere around here. This thing waiting for whenever the Balrog comes out. I promised myself that I'd keep it just for whenever it came out. So it'll be interesting. But that's kind of my thoughts on it. I'd be interested to know others, or whether they thought that was a reasonable suggestion. Like I say, I think linking commander damage to something is sensible. Just to try and get people's enjoyment back into using more than 4 comms, because from a game point of view, and if they want you to spend, for example, and try out different commanders, there has to be an incentive for you to do so. So at the moment, once you've got your Bjorn, Dane and Sauron and kind of like your Gandalf the White to a level that you're happy with, people haven't really got an incentive to go away and spend things, apart from to try and your only real option is to sort of refine gear or to look at someone else. But if other commanders were viable, you would probably see a lot more people look at those options and probably explore them and try and get into the chess where you could get a King of Men, for example, slightly up, or that kind of stuff. So from a game health point of view, I think it'd be a sensible thing, and they could be working on it. They don't talk about a lot of these things sometimes. But that's kind of just my thoughts on it, because I actually think it's a great game still, even though it's sort of switched from 1.0 to 2.0. And I think some of the improvements, like the barrack system in forts, for example, and the who is this, by the way, that I'm about to hit now that they've moved over the top of CLF? Seller from Seller. Where the hell am I? Oh, I'm all the way down here. I thought that was me about to hit. Okay, well, Seller from Seller hasn't covered up very well there, so I'm still going to hit CLF anyway. Although someone's about to hit in front of me. Beyond. Never mind. So I just think it'd be good for the game's point of view to sort of just make it that little bit exciting again, because sometimes seeing the same commanders all day, every day isn't great. I also think teams have got to start taking responsibility for the game, and this is probably another controversial topic, I would suppose, but What I mean by that is there are a lot of big teams, and I'm not pointing fingers at the big teams because I get why they do it, who only recruit big whales or big krakens from the smaller teams. And all that's kind of doing is it's sort of killing off the smaller teams because they come into servers like this, for example. Um, okay, well, I don't think he was full, but he's dead now anyway. So they come into servers like this, and they try to compete like SPRT, for example, and LCDR. I don't think they'll think I'm talking out of turn with this, but they come into a big server like this where teams like there's Yudes and there's Guards, and to be fair, we're not small now either, and Det aren't small either, and Cellar are literally a whale team, even though they've got a lower number. Although that number's increasing now, worryingly. Those kind of people are nil who have got really, really strong people. But they can't compete at that level because the people that they did have as whales have been stolen by larger teams. So from a game health point of view, the whale teams are kind of rightly or wrongly killing their own game because they are taking away the better players from the smaller fellowships. And everyone wants to recruit because they want to get better, but I think there just has to be an element of you need some free-to-play players in each team, or I don't think it could be policed, for example. But as a community, I think we kind of owe it to ourselves to, if someone's sort of happy in a team, just let them be. Don't sort of try and poach them all the time. And it's more about making a good community for your team. So we're quite lucky because the community around our team is quite good. So people tend to stay if they're with us, and that does help because you do tend to recruit and keep your whales. But I don't know. I just kind of feel that unless we actually want to kill our own game, just making 3 or 4 real whale teams makes no sense because you've got no competition then anyway. And I don't think it's great for game health, to be perfectly honest. So that was kind of my 2 cents. I wasn't trying to rant or anything because I'm not really that kind of person. I just kind of wanted to put across some interesting points, really. CLF is a super whale, to be fair to him, and he's clearly here mixing in some comms to try and level them all up at the same time. It's a lot of unit defense knocking around. I do find this as well. I find when you hit people half health, because they use commander health a lot better, you tend to lose similar levels if you hit a whale. So that was kind of it for today. As always, the top up link is in the description. And the tip link is also in the description. I am trying still to become a Fearless Pioneer. I think if I get to 500 subs, they've already kind of agreed that, so it'd be appreciated if we could like and sub. That'd be good. I think I'm nearly up to 400 now. I think I'm at 399, so that's nice. It's good to see it growing. It's nice to see the channel growing. I will try and put out some more consistent content as it goes along, but I just hope that we all have a good think about game health, and that comes from everyone from the top to the bottom and the bottom to the top, and just kind of enjoy it for what it is. See that they are trying to improve it, and whether people like it or not is a different thing, but they are trying to improve the game. And we all go from there. But as always, if in doubt, always follow your nose.